3:6-8. But we're going to spend a lot of time looking through some of the other scriptures dealing with tongue and speech and those sorts of things. So we'll be kind of all over the place as well today. So James 3:6-8 reads this: "And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beasts, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison." The word of the Lord. So James 3:6, looking at that for a little bit. "And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and is set on fire of hell." So these are extreme terms. Pardon me, sorry. So when it says, "as a tongue is a fire," I should probably refer to James 3:5. It says, "And so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth." We talked about how a little spark can catch a fire. It can travel for miles. It can spread to uncontrollable magnitude. And so when it says the tongue is a fire, well, that's the fire. The tongue does the same thing, right? So that look back in context of what we're talking about. So a tongue is a fire. We talked about that more last week, but also as a world of iniquity, which I believe it literally is the world of iniquity, interestingly enough. But it's this vast ecosystem of unrighteous self, and expresses anything that comes from the deep, from the heart. It can just bring those things out. We know this, right? Being victims and perpetrators of our tongues and other people's tongues, right? It is a gate where everything sinful can just pour out. And so what's scary is it says, "The tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is our tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body." So it affects the rest of our body. How can it affect the rest of our body? So we consider in Matthew 15, we read this. Excuse me for a moment. "And he called the multitude, and said unto them, Hear and understand, not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the man, this defileth a man. Then came his disciples and said unto him, Knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard the saying? But he answered and said, Every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind, and if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Declare unto us this parable. And Jesus said, Are ye also yet without understanding? Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly, and is cast out into the draught? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man." So these religious leaders, that they had all these rituals, maybe from the Talmud or some other thing out there, where you had to go through all these washing procedures, which were not founded in Scripture. It was their traditions, and it not only became equal with Scriptures, it superseded the Scriptures, right? And so it was so important. He had to do all these things, and they missed the whole point of all those things. And that we know that it's not stuff that goes into you that defiles. The defiling is from within, and it comes out from within, right? And that's what the real issue is. And so it says, these things defile a man, and it talks about all these different things, but also false witness and blasphemies. These are things that come from the tongue as well. There's very specifically from the tongue, and they come from our innermost beings, and they just affect our entire being right there. And so the tongue also setteth on fire the course of nature, and is set on fire of hell. So think about this. The source of the tongue is hellfire, and the tongue is a source of the path of our whole lives, the course of nature. So how can a tongue set the course of someone's entire life? Some concrete examples. Matthew 5:22, but I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. So why make such a big deal about what we say to other people and so on? It's because the thing is that you can say things that can injure a person so badly that it'll scar them forever. Especially if you think about like children, right? It's the things that you can say, things that are said to the children, that could shape their whole life. It's the course of nature of their lives, right? It's the path of their life can be fully affected by one or two things that were said 20, 30, whatever years ago. And it can't be unsaid. The damage is there. And that's why it becomes such a big deal. And you probably, I can think of things that were in my mind. You probably can think of things in your lives as well that are just like that. So that's why taming the tongue is so important, because of the damage it can cause. But who can tame the tongue? Well, what do we say in the other verse? Well, that's another story. We'll get to that in good time, right? It's that no man can tame the tongue, but it's no man can tame the tongue, right? That's basically the answer, right? So the source of such tragedy is hell. Okay, so what is the word for hell? It's a transliteration of the phrase "the valley of the son of Hinnom." You might even have Gehenna. If you have that in your scripture, do you see anything like Gehenna, or does it say hell? I don't know what it is, but Gehenna, or the valley of the son of Hinnom. And so the valley of the son of Hinnom was this place where evil people would sacrifice their children. So this is the most vile, awful place on the planet, and it's sort of a foreshadowing of the real eternal hell. So that's why it's used the word Gehenna, or Ge I think is valley, and Henna is short for Hinnom. And when there's the son of was just chopped out or whatever. I don't remember the details. That's not really that important. But we see this place discussed in Jeremiah 7:30. We read this: "For the children of Judah have done evil in my sight, saith the Lord. They have set their abominations in the house which is called by my name to pollute it. And they have built the high places of Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I commanded them not, neither came it into my heart. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be called Tophet, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. And they shall bury in Tophet, till there be no place. And the carcasses of this people shall be meat for the fowls of the heaven and for the beasts of the earth, and none shall fray them away. Then will I cause to cease from the cities of Judah and from the streets of Jerusalem the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, for the land shall be desolate." So what is all this? This is a literal geographic location in ancient times, this valley of the son of Hinnom. And they did, just imagine, the sacrifice to your children to these false gods. And they picked up these practices. Did they really think that this was going to benefit them? Whatever it was, it was so vile, it never even came into the Lord's mind when he sees this, when he beheld this from the highest of heaven, said, no, I can't let that go. There's going to be retribution for this. It's so vile. It's so awful to take innocent babies, innocent children, innocent people, and just do this vileness. And so when they see this sort of thing, though that place might not, there's probably nothing there now, but it's a foreshadowing of something that's going to go on hell forever, and that's this valley of slaughter. And so it talks about the carcass of this people shall be meat for the fowls of the heaven and the beasts of the earth, and none shall fray them away. It's just not going to end ever. So this retribution, it's eternal hell. And that's what they're referring to here. When you see Gehenna, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, it's this place on earth. And to think that this is the kind of thing, this is the sort of, how the lowest of the low, and that is what fuels Adamic nature speech. It puts us all kind of on the same levels. That potential of all of us is there. Apart from the grace of Christ, that's us, right? So anyway, think about the speech and how important that is. And so there was a long time ago. I've seen it throughout the years. Ever hear the acronym THINK? Ever hear this before? It's an acronym. It stands for this. Before you say something, you go through this acronym in your mind. Think: is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Ever hear that before? It's kind of neat that you think about it. Is it true? I mean, are you saying, is it true? But that's important. So that it's true. If it's false, well, obviously. But is it helpful? You can say it's true. Well, the sky is blue. Well, that's not going to help anybody, right? Is it inspiring? Or the contrary is to break somebody down. You don't want you want to edify the other person. Is it necessary? Well, I can tell you about something that happened to me this week, but if it doesn't help, it's not helpful, why even bother? And is it kind? Well, you can be true and helpful and all those things, but if you say it in a mean manner, you try to, so you see how that is? So it's true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, kind. If you think of those through that framework and that worldview, that might help. Obviously, it's being led by the Holy Spirit, but on a human level, that's what's going on in our mind. Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. Okay.
I remember a case where Harry Reid lied publicly about Mitt Romney. It was a political battle. Fellow Mormon, and it cost Romney a seat in the House or something. I don't know. Anyway, so they questioned Harry Reid about it after the election was over. And his statement was, well, he didn't win, did he? So he justified his lie by getting it done what he wanted to get done. That's, by spreading a falsehood, we can destroy people.
Yeah. And fellow Mormon, I knew Romney was. I didn't know about Reid.
Harry Reid was Mormon, yeah.
I thought their kind watched out for each other pretty good. I don't know. Well, I guess apparently not. Not when it comes to politics. So, so anyway, that's this. At this point, let's talk about just the idea of what the power of the tongue and those sorts of things. Just to look at some scriptures throughout the Old Testament, especially wisdom literature has a lot to talk about that. I'd like to look at a few passages concerning that, mainly looking through the book of. This is not going to be exhaustive because you'd be here for years, right? But wisdom literature, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and there's some of those things. Song of Solomon, there's nothing that I'm going to bring up from there. So let's check out some of these passages from the power of the tongue according to those books. And looking at the book of Job, there's some interesting things. See, I should probably say that the book of Job, I don't know if I've ever heard anyone preach through the book of Job. Just the conversations and this is Job 1, 2, and 42. Like everything else in between is these cycles of conversations between Job and these three men and this guy named Elihu, and it's kind of confusing, like what's true here, what's not true here, and that's part of it makes a statement of itself, right, about the tongue when just these guys, and the accusations and the awful things that these three guys that say to Job, some of the awful things they say to him. And, I guess I didn't catch it like the first several times I read through Job, and I was like, my goodness, these things. He's blaming the death of his children on him, and these awful things that go on. Anyway, the power of the tongue is something to be said in the book of Job. So let's look at some examples here. In Job 5:21, it says this. And I guess it's one of those things that when you think about, you got to really be careful about what they're saying. Like Eliphaz, who we're going to quote here, is what Eliphaz saying true? Because he's condemned at the end of the book by the Lord, right? So how much is he saying is true? But at the same time, I believe the Apostle Paul quotes Eliphaz somewhere in the New Testament. I forget where it is. I looked at it recently. So it's not everything. You had to question some stuff, but some stuff is correct. So Enough. Okay, Job 5:21. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. So Eliphaz, he's saying this concerning those who accept the Lord's chastening, and while he might be misguided here, accusing Job, he says the scourge of the tongue. So as we said before, the tongue can cause pain and can cause discipline to the hearer. It can be a good kind of disciplining, or it can be a very awful disciplining that you see here. Again, at Job 6:24, teach me, and I will hold my tongue, and cause me to understand where I have erred. So Job, he says, he's saying that he's wants to know where he's erred. He doesn't believe that he's erred anywhere, right? He's gone through some serious trials. We know that not necessarily that just because you're going through hard times that you are under the discipline of the Lord, and we know in the New Testament, oftentimes you're doing things right when these things come along. So here we see that Job is willing to, he wants to hold his tongue. He wants to have the understanding. If there's something where he erred, he does wants to know where he erred so he can move forward with the Lord, because he still has faith in the Lord. He's got obviously a lot of pain, right? And he says some things, but for the most part, his faith is intact. He's been challenged to give up the faith and by his wife and other circumstances, and he says, nope, I'm going to trust in the Lord no matter what, though he's clearly says some things, right? He would control his tongue as if his three friends could show him that was he trying to accept a gift or a bribe or deliverance from them or something like that. He's not intending that. He doesn't want that. He wants to know the truth in there. And 6:30, is there iniquity in my tongue? Cannot my taste discern perverse things? So he's trying to get his friends to prove if he did anything wrong the whole time. And it's just, well, you must have, because you're going through all this and this back and forth. In Job 15, we read this. Then answered Eliphaz the Temanite and said, should a wise man utter vain knowledge and fill his belly with the east wind? Should he reason with unprofitable talk, or with speeches wherewith can he do no good? Yea, thou castest all fear and restraineth prayer before God. For thy mouth uttereth thine iniquity, and thou choosest the tongue of the crafty. Thine own mouth condemneth thee, and not I. Yea, thine own lips testify against thee. So Eliphaz speaking, here we see that the tongue can spill out all kinds of worthless things, which he's accusing him of, which I don't think that's true, but that can happen, right? And speech can truly be unprofitable as part of the THINK acronym, right? That's part of those things. If it's just to talk, just to talk, and how helpful is that, and how much speech is wasted on those things. So he's alleging that he's not only saying sinful things, but he purposely chose to be deceitful, and that's the accusation of Eliphaz. But it's we know that not to be true, but that can be true in situations as well. Zophar saying, though wickedness be sweet in his mouth, though he hide it under his tongue, though he spare it and forsake it not, but keep it still within his mouth. Speaking of the plight of the wicked, and perhaps warning, if not implying that Job might be one of those. That not only can we speak wickedness, people can speak wickedness, but also enjoy doing it while being doing wicked. Sort of like this Harry Reid guy. It sounds like he was not only was he speaking wickedly, but he was enjoying it as he was going along. And we're going to see other examples of that when we get in a little bit. And Job says, all the while my breath is in me, and the Spirit of God is in my nostrils. My lips shall not speak wickedness, nor my tongue utter deceit. So despite his pain and his accusation of his friends, he was resolved not to speak wickedly or intentionally wickedly or deceive others. He wanted to tell it like it is. How about, here's another character in the book of Job, is Elihu. And I got to be frank, I don't really know what to make of this guy. Because, at some times it seems like there's the narrator comes in the Job in the 30s somewhere, and it introduces Elihu, son of Barachel, or something like that. And it says, because the three friends could not convince Job of his sin. It's kind of worded kind of strangely there. And so we see this guy Elihu, and he comes along and he says all these things that don't necessarily line up all the time. But he's not mentioned as one of the ones condemned at the end of the book among the three. Did he slip out when the Lord spoke out of the whirlwind? I don't know. I don't know what to make of him. But at the same time, I do believe that there are some things that what he says are right. I think that has to be. Like he says here in Job 33, 2-4, he says this, "Behold, now I have opened my mouth, my tongue hath spoken in my mouth, my words shall be of the uprightness of my heart, and my lips shall utter knowledge clearly. The Spirit of God hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life." So it's almost like he's at least trying to rely on the Lord as he speaks to Job. That's what it sounds like to me. He might not be all right, but he's trying to get out things that he believes are right, and he wants to make sure that he clarifies things that were wrong or something of between the three guys that were clearly wrong. He speaks from the uprightness of my heart. Well, it could be pride, but then he moves on and says, "The Spirit of God hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life." So he's trying to admit that, well, I'm dependent on the Lord here. He created me. He gives me life. He sustains me. And so with the best of my knowledge, I'm going to move forward and try to speak right. And that goes for us. Like when we try to help somebody else who's in pain or some other situation, recognizing our role that we can be used of the Lord to help out in a situation by edifying or whatever. It's hard to tell, right, with this Elihu. But I think the principle's still there for us anyway, right? That to rely on the Lord, to realize in our lives as we're speaking, we're being a steward of those words from the Lord and trying to help other people. I don't know if you have an opinion on Elihu. It's kind of confusing, but that's my opinion on Elihu. I think it's just not so clear cut with him. Psalms is a little bit more clear about these matters than the book of Job. So we can look at some of the things that Psalms say. The Psalms, I would say, about half of them are written by, from a human perspective, from David. So a lot of those are from this example, from his life and example. Psalm 5:9. "For there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulchre. They flatter with their tongue." So the wicked person's speech is likened to a grave that is opened. It's interesting, this is quoted, I believe, in Romans 3, at least in part in Romans 3, to condemn all under sin. Their throat is an open sepulchre. That's said there, and that, there is none righteous, no, not one. That whole passage in there, it goes by 6 or so verses from Romans 3. It's like in the middle to the end. It has those quotations from all over the Old Testament, and this is one of them, to show that that everyone is condemned under sin. So this is everyone's story, and to a degree. Now David is saying this from a human perspective, but really, this is our reality, or at least our potential reality, being of the sons of Adam. So a wicked person's speech is likened to a grave that is opened. Just think of that, the foul stench that emanates in the form of flattery. Flattery. You try to butter somebody up, but really, there's another motive there. It's not real edification. Flattery, it sounds sweet, but it's deceptive, right? That kind of thing. The hidden intent is to harm in some way, to let their guard down and then go after them that way. And the speech is representative our speech is representative of our innermost character as well, and especially for the wicked, it's going to come straight out like that. And and again, Psalm 10:7, "His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity." So the words of the wicked, I should probably say that I'm going through the words of the wicked first. There's going to be different things. We'll talk about the words of the righteous and words. I have a couple of topics. This is the words of the wicked I'm primarily speaking of now. The words of that are words of the wicked, to manipulate, to steal from others, to condemn, worthless words. It says, "Keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile." It says in Psalm 34:13. And the last one I'd look at today is, how about Doeg the Edomite? Well, we know the story from 1 Samuel, but he's also mentioned in the book of Psalms. and some of his words and how he twisted words, and then he used them to kill a very large amount of people. So Doeg the Edomite, in Psalm 52, we read this. Psalm 52:1, to the chief musician Maskil, a psalm of David, when Doeg the Edomite came and told Saul and said unto him, David is come to the house of Ahimelech. Why boastest thou thyself in mischief, O mighty man? The goodness of God endureth continually. Thy tongue deviseth mischiefs, like a sharp razor working deceitfully. Thou lovest evil more than good, and lying rather than to speak righteousness, Selah. Thou lovest all devouring words, O thou deceitful tongue. God shall likewise destroy thee forever. He shall take thee away and pluck thee out of thy dwelling place and root thee out of the land of the living, Selah. So he's a very vile person, the story. David is on the run from Saul, and he runs away to the high priest, and he gets food and a sword. The sword of that he slew Goliath with. It was stored there apparently, and he took it, and so he was just getting some help there. So anyway, when Saul comes, David leaves, enters Saul. Saul wants to come and track down David. Doeg was a witness to what David and Ahimelech, their exchange. He was a witness to that, if you recall the story. And so when Saul comes, Doeg was very ready to share this information with Saul. But he adds a little something to it. So 1 Samuel 22:9-10 says, Then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse come to Nov, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him. There's the extra. And he inquired of the Lord for him and gave him victuals and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. So when Saul's men, they were, because of this, Saul wanted to kill the priests of the Lord. Nobody would do it. Doeg volunteers, I'll do it. And so he went over, he killed 85 priests or something like that, and he went to the town and slaughtered everyone, women, children, everything. He just cleared out the whole town of Nov. He cleared out the whole thing, and he was very eager to do all that. So we talk about how evil he can be. We'll get to his speech in just a moment, what happens though. But now David concedes this Doeg, he calls him a mighty man. So you kind of think he's some sort of a weasel or some sort of weenie, but the idea is that he is a mighty person. He calls him a mighty man. So he has some track record of being strong and mighty in some way. And so God is always good, but this man, he boasts of his own mischief. We see in this psalm here, and he just throws it in the Lord's face. And so instead of speaking righteously, he lies. And so he told a partial truth here. It says that he implied that Ahimelech inquired of the Lord for David. And what was he getting at? He was hoping that, he was trying to imply that somehow David was implying to seek the Lord on how he can overthrow Saul. So that's the implication that's kind of in here as well. So not only did he lie, though, about this whole thing, he enjoyed lying about this, and he thought it would win him favor with Saul. He's in charge of his servants, so maybe I'll get a promotion out of this. Maybe I'm just doing, I'll say whatever I want. I can just say whatever just so I can get what I want out of the king and get this promotion. Of course, we don't hear much of after the story, so what did he get out of all this? He just enjoyed being evil. He enjoyed lying. He enjoyed watching these people fall. Just imagine how cruel and evil you can be just to enjoy this, like this guy is lying about his political opponent, and he didn't get elected, right? Ha! That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny, yeah? Well, this guy laughed about people dying, and so I guess he's even more extreme than that fellow in Washington. And I think I'll stop there since it's we're kind of at the time box. So we'll that's Doeg.